The desert wind, a relentless sculptor of sand and rock, whispered secrets across the desolate expanse of the Nevada test and training range. For Captain Alex Specter Thorne, the silence was often more unsettling than the loudest explosions. A former Delta Force operative, Alex now led a highly specialized, clandestine unit known only as Wraith. His call sign, Specter, was earned for his uncanny ability to vanish and reappear, a ghost in the operational theater. Today, however, the ghosts were real. He sat hunched over a cracked tablet, the faint glow illuminating the grim lines etched into his face. His eyes, usually sharp and calculating, held a flicker of disbelief, almost dread. The image on the screen was grainy, a satellite thermal signature, but unmistakable. A distinct, elongated heat signature, buried deep beneath shifting sands, miles from any known installation. It was the ghost of a legend, a whispered nightmare from the Cold War era, a broken arrow. "Sir," a voice, calm and measured, broke the stillness. Sergeant Lena Valkyrie Petrova, his second in command, stood beside him. Her posture was always impeccable, even in the field, a testament to her unwavering discipline. Her dark, intelligent eyes scanned the tablet, then met Alex's. "Is that what I think it is?" Her voice was low, a hint of steel beneath the question. Alex slowly nodded, his jaw tight. "Echoes of 88, Lena. Only this time, it's not just lost. It's resurfaced." He traced the outline of the anomaly with a gloved finger. Intel suggests it's the Desert Serpent, the one that went missing during that botched transport exercise. They buried the story deeper than the weapon itself. He looked up, his gaze sweeping across the vast empty landscape as if the very air held the weight of the past. Someone dug it up. A chill, colder than the desert night, ran down Lena's spine. A broken arrow, a nuclear weapon lost or stolen, was the Pentagon's ultimate nightmare. The Desert Serpent was particularly infamous, a relic of a bygone era, but still potent enough to level a city. "Who, sir? And why now?" Her brow furrowed, a mix of concern and professional curiosity. "That's what we're here to find out." Alex stood, his movements fluid despite the weight of his gear. He adjusted the strap of his rifle, the familiar cold steel a small comfort. The intel points to a well-funded, well-organized outfit, not your average desert rats. Suddenly, a distant, almost imperceptible tremor vibrated through the ground. Alex and Lena exchanged a look. Their comms, usually crackling with ambient noise, were silent. Too silent. "Movement," Alex whispered, his hand instinctively going to the safety of his weapon. "North-northeast. Fast." Lena pulled out her monocular, scanning the horizon. "Dust cloud, sir. Coming in hot." Her voice was taut, her eyes fixed on a rapidly approaching plume. "Looks like a convoy. Heavy vehicles." A grim smile touched Alex's lips, devoid of humor. "Well, Lena, looks like the ghost just found its bodyguards." He raised his rifle, the scope glinting in the faint moonlight. His face, previously etched with concern, now hardened into a mask of cold determination. "Wraith, prepare for contact. This isn't a retrieval exercise anymore. It's a fight." His voice, though quiet, carried the weight of command, a promise of the storm about to break. The sterile white walls of the secure briefing room felt like a cage after the vastness of the desert. Captain Alex Thorne stood before a holographic display, the Desert Serpent's thermal signature now overlaid with topographical maps and satellite imagery. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and unspoken tension. "Gentlemen, and Lena." General Maxwell Vance's voice, gravelly and authoritative, cut through the quiet. Vance, a man whose career was built on black ops and covert warfare, rarely showed emotion. But today, a subtle tremor in his hand as he gestured to the display betrayed his unease. What you're seeing is a Class Alpha broken arrow, a nuclear device confirmed to be the Desert Serpent lost for over 3 decades, now in the hands of an unknown entity. Alex's team, Wraith, stood at attention. Lena Petrova, her expression unreadable, stood beside him. Across from them, the rest of the unit, Sergeant Marcus Maverick Cole, a former Army Ranger with an almost supernatural ability to read terrain and enemy movements, his muscular frame radiating quiet strength. Specialist Anya Sharma, Oracle, their tech and comms expert, her sharp intellect hidden behind a pair of unassuming glasses, her fingers already dancing over a portable keyboard. And the newest addition, Corporal Ben Carter, Ghost, a young, exceptionally skilled sniper, still a bit green but with a steady hand and an unnerving patience. Initial intelligence suggests a highly organized, well-funded militia, Vance continued, his eyes sweeping over each member of the team. They've been operating under the radar, acquiring assets, and now, apparently, a nuclear weapon. Their motives are unclear, but the fact they've moved it onto U.S. soil, that's a game changer. He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. Your mission is simple, yet impossible. Retrieve the device, neutralize any threats, and ensure it never sees the light of day again. No collateral, no public knowledge. This is a ghost operation. Wraith is the only unit capable of handling this. Alex stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the general. General, what do we know about their leadership, their network? Vance's lips thinned. That's the most concerning part, Captain. They're a phantom. No clear leader, no discernible ideology beyond a vague anti-government sentiment. They operate in cells, highly compartmentalized. Our best guess is they're led by someone with significant military experience, possibly special forces, given their operational security. He pushed a button and a blurry, pixelated image of a man appeared on the screen. His face was obscured, but his build was powerful, his stance authoritative. Maverick grunted, a low sound of skepticism. The architect sounds like a comic book villain. His tone was dry, but his eyes were serious. Anya, however, leaned closer to her screen, her fingers flying. Wait a minute, General. This image, the gait, the posture, it's almost identical to a profile I flagged last month. A former Black Ops contractor went off-grid. Name's Elias Thorne. Her voice was quiet, but the implication hung heavy in the air. Alex felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. Elias Thorne, his older brother, a man he hadn't seen or spoken to in years, a ghost from his own past, consumed by bitterness after a mission gone wrong, leaving him discharged and disillusioned. Could it be? The thought was a punch to the gut. His face, usually stoic, betrayed a flicker of raw emotion, a mix of shock, anger, and a deep personal dread. Vance looked at Alex, a question in his eyes. Captain? Alex straightened, his voice clipped, forcing the personal aside. Anya, confirm that profile. Run every biometric and behavioral analysis you have. Maverick, I need a full tactical assessment of the recovery site. Ghost, recon routes, potential ambush points. Lena, logistics. We move in 600. This just got personal. His gaze hardened, the flicker of emotion replaced by a cold fire. If Elias was involved, this wasn't just a mission anymore. It was a reckoning. The desert night was a canvas of inky black, punctuated by the silent glint of stars. Wraith moved like shadows, their boots barely disturbing the loose gravel. Alex, leading the point, felt the familiar hum of adrenaline, sharpened by the unsettling revelation about Elias. He pushed the thought aside, focusing on the immediate threat. Their target, a makeshift encampment, a cluster of camouflaged vehicles and tents nestled in a remote canyon, identified by Anya's drone as a likely staging area for the militia. The thermal signatures were clear, at least a dozen armed men. 2 sentries, North Ridge, static. Ghost's calm voice crackled in Alex's ear, his scope providing a crystal-clear view from a distant perch. 1 patrol, south entrance, moving east. "Copy that, Ghost," Alex murmured, signaling to Maverick, who seamlessly peeled off to flank the patrol. Lena, ever vigilant, covered their rear, her rifle held ready. They approached the camp, the air growing colder, a metallic tang on the wind. Alex could feel the tension radiating from his team, a shared understanding of the stakes. This wasn't just another op, it was the first real taste of their enemy. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the canyon. A flare shot into the sky, bathing the camp in a blinding white light, illuminating a figure standing on a rocky outcrop. "Contact!" Maverick's voice was urgent. "They knew we were coming." Alex swore under his breath. "Fall back, find cover." A hail of automatic rifle fire erupted from the camp, tearing through the night. Tracer rounds zipped past their heads, kicking up dust and rock fragments. The militia was well armed, their fire disciplined. Alex dove behind a large boulder, Lena beside him, returning fire with controlled bursts. "Anya, intel on that figure. Who is it?" "Working on it, Specter." Anya's voice was strained amidst the gunfire. "Heavy jamming on their comms. But the figure, it's the architect. Confirmed. And he's giving orders." Alex risked a glance. The figure, even from a distance, exuded an aura of cold authority. He watched as the militia moved with practiced efficiency, setting up defensive positions, their movements fluid and coordinated. This was no ragtag group. "They're trying to pin us down," Lena shouted, her shots precise, dropping a militant who was attempting to flank them. "Ghost, suppressive fire on the North Ridge," Alex commanded, then turned to Maverick. "Maverick, create a diversion, south side. We need to break their line of sight." Maverick didn't hesitate. A series of controlled explosions rocked the southern end of the camp, followed by a flurry of rifle fire. The militia's attention shifted, giving Alex and Lena a precious few seconds to reposition. As Alex moved, he saw the architect, still silhouetted, raise a hand. A moment later, a heavy machine gun opened fire from a fortified position, its rounds tearing through the air with terrifying force, forcing them to hug the ground. "They're laying down a kill zone," Anya warned, her voice tight. "Specter, you need to disengage." Alex gritted his teeth. He wanted to push, to get closer, to confirm if the architect was truly Elias. But the fire was too intense. He saw Ghost, pinned down, his shots becoming less frequent. "Wraith, tactical retreat," Alex barked, his voice filled with frustration. "Fall back to Rally Point Charlie. Ghost, cover our withdrawal." As they pulled back, ducking and weaving through the barrage, Alex caught another glimpse of the architect. The figure lowered his hand, a chillingly calm gesture amidst the chaos. Alex could almost feel the man's eyes on him, a silent challenge. The encounter was brief, brutal, and a stark reminder of the enemy's capabilities. They had walked into a trap, and the architect had let them escape, a calculated move that left Alex with a bitter taste in his mouth. This wasn't just a militia, it was a well-oiled machine, and its leader was playing a dangerous game. Back at their secure forward operating base, the air was thick with the scent of sweat and simmering frustration. The team, bruised but not broken, gathered around Anya's console, the holographic map of the region now a spiderweb of red and blue lines. "They knew," Alex stated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes fixed on the blurry image of the architect. "They were waiting for us." Anya's fingers flew across her keyboard. Their comms were encrypted with a proprietary algorithm, Specter, high-level stuff. And their counter-surveillance was top-notch. They detected our drone long before we got close. She sighed, pushing her glasses up her nose. "This isn't just a militia. This is a private army, funded by someone with deep pockets and even deeper connections. Lena, meticulously cleaning her rifle, looked up. And the architect? Any more on him? Anya nodded, her expression grim. I cross-referenced the biometric data from the drone feed with every known intelligence database. The probability is 98.7%. She paused, taking a deep breath. The architect is Elias Thorne. A heavy silence descended upon the room. Maverick's jaw tightened, his gaze flicking to Alex. Ghost, usually quiet, shifted uncomfortably. The revelation, though anticipated by Alex, still hit with the force of a physical blow. Alex's face remained a mask, but his eyes, when he looked at Anya, were cold and hard. What else? He's been off the grid for 5 years, Anya continued, her voice softer now, sensing the tension. After his discharge, he vanished. We had him flagged as a potential high-risk individual, but no active threats until now. His last known associates were a mix of disillusioned former military, anti-government extremists, and, surprisingly, a few high-profile tech magnates and disillusioned financiers. Financiers? Lena echoed, surprised. What's their angle? That's the million-dollar question, Anya replied, pulling up a complex network diagram. They're all connected through shell corporations, dark web forums, and encrypted communication channels. They share a common thread, a deep distrust of the government, a belief that the system is broken and needs to be reset. Alex slammed his fist lightly on the table, the sound echoing in the quiet room. A reset with a nuclear weapon? That's not a reset, that's an apocalypse. He paced, his mind racing. He's always been radical, but this is beyond anything I could have imagined. His voice was laced with a bitter mix of anger and betrayal. He's using his military training, his contacts, to build an army, and he's got the funding to back it up. Maverick, who had been observing Alex closely, finally spoke. Specter, with all due respect, your personal history with the architect, it could be a liability. His tone was not accusatory, but pragmatic. Alex stopped, turning to face Maverick, his eyes blazing. It's a liability I'll manage, Maverick. It's also an advantage. I know how he thinks. I know his tactics better than anyone. His voice was low, but the steel beneath it was unmistakable. He's not just an enemy, he's family, and that makes this even more dangerous. He'll anticipate my moves, and I'll anticipate his. Lena stepped forward, placing a hand on Alex's arm. He's right, Alex. We need to be careful. Elias knows your playbook. He'll exploit any weakness. Alex took a deep breath, visibly composing himself. The raw emotion receded, replaced by the familiar, cold resolve of a commander. Understood. Anya, I need a deep dive into every one of those financiers. Find their vulnerabilities. Maverick, Ghost, I want a detailed plan for infiltration. We need to get eyes on that weapon, confirm its location, and understand their detonation plan. This time, we go in silent. We go in deep. No more first contacts. Next time, we hit them where it hurts. His gaze hardened, a silent promise hanging in the air. The hunt for his brother and the weapon he controlled had truly begun. The target was a decommissioned industrial complex, a sprawling labyrinth of crumbling concrete and rusted steel, nestled deep within a forgotten corner of the Nevada desert. Anya's intel had pinpointed it as a primary staging ground and, more alarmingly, a potential assembly point for the desert Serpent. All right, Wraith. Alex's voice was a low whisper over the comms, his face smeared with camouflage paint, blending seamlessly with the shadows. Entry point is Sector 7, the old ventilation shaft. Ghost, you're providing overwatch from the South Tower. Maverick, Lena, you're with me. Anya, you're our eyes and ears, guiding us through their network. The ventilation shaft was narrow, smelling of dust and decay. Alex moved with practiced ease, his movements fluid, almost silent. Lena followed, her every step precise, her breathing controlled. Maverick, a hulking shadow, brought up the rear. Inside, the complex was a maze of dimly lit corridors and vast, echoing warehouses. The air hummed with the faint thrum of generators and the distant murmur of voices. Alex held up a fist, signaling a halt. He pressed his ear to a steel door, listening intently. 2 hostiles, armed, just beyond this door, he whispered into his comms. Patrol pattern, they'll be clear in 30 seconds. As the footsteps faded, Alex nodded to Maverick, who expertly picked the lock. The door swung open silently, revealing a long, dark corridor. They moved like phantoms, their night vision goggles painting the world in shades of green. Anya's voice, calm and clear, guided them. Specter, moving towards Sector Gamma, high concentration of thermal signatures, looks like their main operational hub. They navigated through the complex, avoiding tripwires and laser grids that Anya's scans revealed. The malicious security was sophisticated, a testament to Elias's meticulous planning and the resources at his disposal. Alex felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. Elias was always a step ahead. As they approached Sector Gamma, the murmur of voices grew louder. Alex peered through a narrow crack in a steel door. Inside, a cavernous warehouse was bustling with activity. Men in tactical gear moved around a large tarp-covered object. On a raised platform, a figure stood, his back to them, addressing the men. The architect, Elias. Alex's breath hitched. He could feel the tremor in his hands, a mix of rage and a strange, profound sadness. "Specter, what do you see?" Lena whispered, her hand on his shoulder. "The architect," Alex replied, his voice barely audible. "And the package. It's here." He could make out the distinct shape beneath the tarp, the long cylindrical form of a nuclear warhead. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed from a distant part of the complex. A guard, startled, spun around, his eyes scanning the shadows. Alex froze, his heart pounding. "Specter, you've been detected. Movement towards your position. Multiple hostiles." Elias, on the platform, turned sharply, his head cocked as if sensing their presence. He barked an order, and the militia sprang into action, their weapons raised, fanning out through the warehouse. "Damn it," Alex hissed. "They're sweeping the area. We need to move." As they began to retreat, a single piercing alarm blared through the complex, its red lights flashing, painting the shadows in an ominous glow. Elias, now fully visible, looked directly at their position, a chillingly calm expression on his face. He knew. He always knew. "Specter, they're locking down the complex." Anya's voice was frantic. "You're trapped." Alex looked at Lena and Maverick, their faces grim but resolute. They were deep inside enemy territory, the alarm blaring, and the architect was watching. The infiltration had turned into a desperate fight for survival. The escape from the industrial complex was a harrowing blur of gunfire, close calls, and desperate maneuvers. Wraith barely made it out, battered and bruised, but with critical intel. The desert Serpent was indeed there, and Elias Thorne was preparing it for transport. Back at the FOB, the mood was tense, thick with suspicion. The fact that Elias had anticipated their infiltration almost to the minute gnawed at Alex. Someone had to have tipped him off. "It doesn't make sense," Lena said, pacing the small briefing room. "Our comms are secure. Our movements were compartmentalized. How could he have known?" Alex leaned against a tactical map, his arms crossed, his gaze sweeping over each member of his team. Maverick, stoic as ever, cleaned his rifle. Ghost, unusually quiet, stared at his boots. Anya, her brow furrowed, was running diagnostics on their network. "There are only 5 people who knew the full details of that operation," Alex said, his voice low and deliberate. "Myself, Lena, Maverick, Ghost, and Anya." His eyes lingered on Anya. "Anya, are you absolutely certain about our network security? No breaches, no anomalies?" Anya looked up, her face pale. Specter, I've run every diagnostic, triple-checked the firewalls, encryption protocols. There's no external breach. It's impossible. Her voice was firm, but a tremor of doubt was perceptible. Impossible or improbable? Maverick interjected, his eyes narrowing. Someone fed him information. It's the only explanation. He looked at Anya, a hint of accusation in his gaze. You're our comms expert, Oracle. If there's a leak, it's through your systems. Anya flinched, her cheeks flushing. Are you accusing me, Maverick? Her voice rose, a rare display of emotion. I've built these systems from the ground up. They're impenetrable. Easy, both of you, Lena cut in, stepping between them. We're a team. Pointing fingers won't help. We need to think logically. What if it's not a breach? What if it's internal? Her gaze shifted, subtly, to Ghost. Ghost, who had been silent, suddenly looked up, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and hurt. Me? Valkyrie, I've been with this unit for 6 months. I would never betray you. His voice was raw, his hands clenching into fists. Alex felt a pang of unease. Ghost was young, but fiercely loyal. Yet the possibility lingered. He was the newest member, the least vetted. No one is accusing anyone yet, Alex said, his voice calm, cutting through the rising tension. But we have to consider every possibility. Ghost, you were on Overwatch. Did you see anything unusual? Any movement? Any signals? Anything at all that could have tipped him off? Ghost shook his head, his gaze unwavering. Nothing, Specter. Just the usual desert wildlife, I swear. His eyes pleaded for belief. Anya, still defensive, spoke up. Wait, there was one thing. A very brief, almost imperceptible data burst routed through a civilian satellite network just before the alarm. I dismissed it as static, but if it was encrypted, it could have been a signal. She looked at Alex, her eyes wide with a sudden realization. But it wasn't from our network. It was an external source. Alex's eyes narrowed. External? Meaning someone else was watching us? Or someone was communicating with Elias from outside his immediate circle? Lena snapped her fingers. The financiers. Anya, you said they were connected through dark web forums. What if one of them is the leak, feeding Elias intel on our movements, using a secret channel? Anya's fingers flew across her keyboard, her previous defensiveness replaced by a renewed focus. It's possible. If they're using a civilian network, it would bypass our secure channels. I can try to trace that data burst, but it'll be like finding a needle in a haystack. Alex felt a surge of relief, followed by a cold anger. The suspicion had been a bitter pill, but the idea of an external puppet master feeding Elias information was almost worse. Elias wasn't just a rogue operative, he was a pawn in a larger, more sinister game. Do it, Anya, Alex commanded, his voice firm. Find that needle. Maverick, Ghost, prepare for immediate deployment. If Elias is moving that weapon, we need to be on his tail. This time, we don't just observe, we intercept. And we find out who's pulling his strings. The betrayal, both personal and professional, fueled a new, dangerous resolve in Alex. He would not only stop Elias, but he would unmask the shadowy figures behind him.
The desert sun beat down mercilessly, turning the air into a shimmering haze. Anya's relentless tracing of the data burst had paid off, revealing a faint but distinct signal originating from a remote, private airfield. The message was simple, yet chilling. Package en route. Destination east. They're moving it, Alex stated, his voice tight, watching the satellite feed on Anya's screen. A convoy of heavy trucks, escorted by armed vehicles, snaked across the desert floor, kicking up massive dust clouds. East, that puts them on a direct course for a major population center. Lena slammed her fist on the table. They're not just threatening, they're going to do it. They're going for a populated area. Her face was grim, her eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. Maverick, Ghost, gear up. We're intercepting, Alex barked, already pulling on his tactical vest. Anya, give me real-time tracking. Every turn, every stop. Lena, you're with me. We're taking the Raptors. Their vehicles, armored all-terrain beasts, roared to life, kicking up a storm of sand. Alex took the wheel of the lead Raptor, Lena in the passenger seat, her rifle ready. Maverick and Ghost followed in the second vehicle, a silent, deadly pursuit team. The chase was on. The desert landscape blurred past as they pushed the Raptors to their limits, closing the distance on the militia convoy. Alex's eyes were fixed on the dusty horizon, his mind racing, anticipating Elias's moves. He knew his brother would have contingency plans, ambushes, anything to slow them down. "Specter, incoming!" Anya's voice crackled, her tone urgent. "Two armed vehicles breaking off from the main convoy, flanking your position." Alex swerved sharply, narrowly avoiding a volley of machine gun fire. Lena returned fire, her shots precise, forcing the enemy vehicles to swerve. The desert became a chaotic battlefield, the roar of engines mixing with the crackle of gunfire. "Maverick, engage those flankers," Alex commanded, his voice calm despite the chaos. "We need to get to the main convoy." Maverick's Raptor peeled off, engaging the militia vehicles in a brutal exchange of fire. Explosivities rocked the desert as Maverick, with Ghost providing cover fire, systematically disabled the enemy. Meanwhile, Alex pressed on, closing in on the lead truck, the one carrying the desert Serpent. He could see the tarp-covered shape, a dark, ominous presence. Suddenly, the lead truck swerved, kicking up a wall of dust, and a figure emerged from the passenger side, raising a high-powered rifle. Elias. Alex felt a surge of cold fury. Elias was personally overseeing the transport. He was not just directing, he was leading. Elias fired. The round impacted Alex's windshield, spiderwebbing the glass. Alex ducked, swearing, then pressed the accelerator, ramming the Raptor into the side of the truck. The impact jolted them, but the truck, heavily armored, barely flinched. "He's going to detonate it remotely if we get too close," Lena shouted, her eyes wide with alarm. "He'll sacrifice the weapon to stop us." Alex knew it was a distinct possibility. Elias was capable of anything. He had to get to that truck, but without triggering a premature detonation. "Anya, any way to disable their comms, their remote detonator?" Alex yelled into his comm. "Working on it, Specter. Heavy encryption. It's going to take time," Anya replied, her voice strained. As they continued the high-speed chase, Alex saw Elias standing on the running board of the truck, his face grim, his eyes locked on Alex's Raptor. There was no recognition, no brotherly bond, just the cold, calculating gaze of an enemy. The chase was not just for a weapon, it was a desperate race against time, a brother against brother, with the fate of millions hanging in the balance. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a stark contrast to the grim reality unfolding beneath it. The militia convoy, battered but still moving, had reached the outskirts of a sprawling metropolitan area. Anya's frantic updates confirmed their worst fears. The target was a densely populated city, a chillingly calculated choice. "Specter, they're heading for the old industrial district, near the main power grid." Anya's voice was a desperate whisper over the comms. If they detonate there, the EMP alone could cripple the entire eastern seaboard, let alone the blast radius. Alex's jaw was clenched so tight it ached. His eyes, red-rimmed from lack of sleep and relentless focus, stared at the flickering map. The red dot, representing the desert Serpent, was inexorably moving towards the heart of the city. "How much time, Anya?" Alex asked, his voice hoarse. "Based on their current speed and the estimated time to arm the device, less than an hour, Specter. Maybe 45 minutes. Her voice cracked with the weight of the pronouncement. Lena, her face pale, looked at Alex. "We're running out of road, Alex. We have to engage them now." Maverick, who had successfully disabled the last of the escort vehicles, pulled his Raptor alongside Alex's. "They're dug in, Specter. Heavy fire. We'll need a direct assault." Alex nodded, his mind racing, trying to find an opening, a weakness in Elias's ironclad plan. He knew Elias wouldn't just drive into the city. He'd have a hardened perimeter, a final line of defense. As they approached the industrial district, the air grew thick with the smell of exhaust and the distant hum of city life, a stark reminder of what was at stake. The militia had set up a formidable blockade, armored vehicles, concrete barriers, and a small army of heavily armed men. "They've got snipers on the rooftops," Ghost reported, his voice tight with urgency, "and a heavy machine gun nest at the main entrance." Alex took a deep breath, the weight of command pressing down on him. This was it, the final approach. He looked at his team, their faces grim but resolute. They were tired, bruised, but their resolve was unwavering. "All right, Wraith." Alex's voice was low, but carried the unwavering authority of a commander. "This is it. Last stand. Maverick, you take out that machine gun nest. Ghost, clear the rooftops. Lena, you're with me. We're going for the truck. Anya, you keep trying to disable that detonator. Every second counts." He looked at Lena, his eyes conveying a silent message. No going back. No second chances. Lena nodded, her hand gripping her rifle. "Understood, Specter. For the fifth act." As they prepared for the assault, a chillingly calm voice crackled over their comms, overriding their secure channel. It was Elias. Alex's brother's voice was devoid of emotion, a cold, detached tone that sent shivers down Alex's spine. "Alex, you're too late. The gears are in motion. The world needs a reset, and I'm the architect of its new beginning." Alex's blood ran cold. Elias wasn't just a pawn, he was a true believer in his twisted ideology. He was willing to sacrifice millions for his warped vision of a better world. "Elias, don't do this," Alex roared into his comms, his voice raw with desperation. "This isn't a reset, it's mass murder. Think of the innocent lives." A cold, humorless chuckle echoed through the comms. "Innocent lives are a casualty of progress, little brother. You always were too sentimental. Now, watch as I bring about the dawn of a new era." The line went dead. Alex felt a surge of pure, unadulterated rage. He slammed his hand on the steering wheel. He's going to do it. He's going to detonate it. His eyes, now burning with a fierce determination, locked on to the truck. "Not on my watch. Not today." The countdown had begun, and Wraith was the only thing standing between Elias and global catastrophe. The industrial district erupted into a maelstrom of gunfire, explosions, and the desperate shouts of men. Wraith launched their assault with a ferocity born of desperation. Maverick, a force of nature, systematically dismantled the machine gun nest, his movements precise and deadly. Ghost, a silent angel of death, picked off snipers from the rooftops, their bodies falling with sickening thuds. Alex and Lena, under a hail of fire, pushed towards the lead truck. The militia, though well-trained, were unprepared for Wraith's relentless, coordinated attack. Alex moved with a primal focus, his every action aimed at one goal, reaching Elias and that weapon. As they breached the outer perimeter, a figure emerged from the truck, a familiar silhouette against the flickering streetlights. Elias. He held a tablet in his hand, his thumb hovering over a red button. "Elias, stop this!" Alex roared, his voice raw, echoing across the chaotic scene. Elias looked at him, his face illuminated by the distant city lights. His eyes, once filled with a shared history, were now cold, devoid of warmth, reflecting only a chilling fanaticism. "It's too late, Alex. The world is broken. It needs to be purged." His voice was calm, almost serene, a terrifying contrast to the violence around them. Lena provided cover fire, keeping the remaining militia at bay, her face a mask of grim determination. "Go, Alex! Get to him!" Alex sprinted forward, dodging bullets, his rifle spitting fire. He saw Elias's thumb begin to depress the button. Time seemed to slow. With a desperate lunge, Alex tackled Elias, sending them both crashing to the ground. The tablet flew from Elias's hand, skidding across the concrete. Alex scrambled for it, but Elias, surprisingly strong, twisted, his eyes blazing with a feral intensity. "You always were weak, Alex," Elias snarled, his voice guttural, as he landed a punch that sent Alex reeling. Alex shook his head, clearing the cobwebs, his jaw aching. "This isn't resolve, Elias. This is madness." He lunged back, engaging his brother in a brutal hand-to-hand struggle. Elias fought with a desperate, almost suicidal fury, fueled by his twisted ideology. Every punch, every block, was imbued with years of unspoken resentment and a shared, painful past. Alex parried a blow, then countered with a swift kick to Elias's knee. Elias grunted, stumbling, but recovered quickly, his eyes fixed on the tablet. He lunged for it, but Alex intercepted, slamming him against the side of the truck. "Where did you get this idea, Elias? Who put this in your head?" Alex demanded, his voice strained, pinning his brother against the metal. Elias laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "They merely showed me the truth, Alex, the truth you're too blind to see. The system is corrupt. It needs to burn." He struggled, his muscles coiling, trying to break free. Suddenly, a shot rang out. Elias cried out, his body going limp against Alex. Alex looked down, seeing a blossoming red stain on Elias's chest. Lena stood a few yards away, her rifle still smoking, her face pale. "He was reaching for the detonator," Lena said, her voice trembling slightly. "I had no choice, Alex." Her eyes were filled with a mixture of regret and grim necessity. Alex looked at his brother, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and profound sorrow. Elias's eyes, once so cold, now held a flicker of something else, perhaps regret, perhaps understanding, perhaps just the fading light of life. "Alex," Elias whispered, his voice weak, a faint tremor in his hand as he reached out. I just wanted to fix it." His hand fell, his eyes glazing over, and he went still. Alex knelt, his hand hovering over his brother's still form. The chaos of the battle faded into the background. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and blood. He had stopped Elias, saved countless lives, but at a cost that tore at his very soul. The warhead, still on the truck, pulsed ominously, a silent testament to the horror they had averted. The final stand was over, but the wounds it inflicted would last a lifetime. The pre-dawn light painted the industrial district in hues of gray, revealing the grim tableau of the previous night. The desert Serpent, now disarmed and secured by a specialized ordnance disposal team, sat inert, its destructive potential neutralized. The militia, their ranks decimated, were either captured or scattered into the desert, their grand plan shattered. Alex stood beside the truck, watching the EOD team work. His face was streaked with grime and blood, his uniform torn. The exhaustion was bone deep, but it was the emotional weight that truly crushed him. Elias, his brother. Lena approached him, her steps slow. She held a thermal blanket, offering it to him. "It's over, Alex." Her voice was soft, laced with a quiet understanding. Alex took the blanket, wrapping it around himself, but the cold within him remained. He was so lost, Lena, so consumed by it. He looked at her, his eyes hollow. Did we have a choice? Lena placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. He left us none, Alex. He was going to detonate it. You know that. Her gaze was firm, acknowledging the brutal truth. You saved millions of lives today. You did what had to be done. Anya, looking equally weary, joined them. Specter, I managed to trace the data burst back to its source. It wasn't just one financier, it was a consortium, a shadowy organization calling themselves the Purifiers. They believe society is irredeemably corrupt and needs to be cleansed through a cataclysmic event, paving the way for a new world order. Her voice was filled with disgust. The architect was just a tool, Maverick added, his voice grim. A very effective one, but a tool nonetheless. Alex closed his eyes, picturing Elias's face, the fanaticism in his eyes. He believed it, though. He truly believed he was doing the right thing. The irony was a bitter taste in his mouth. Elias, who had always railed against the system, had become a pawn in an even larger, more insidious game. General Vance arrived, his face etched with relief, but also a profound weariness. He looked at Alex, then at the secured warhead. Captain Thorne, you and your team, you averted a catastrophe. The nation owes you a debt it can never repay. He paused, his gaze softening slightly. About Elias, I'm truly sorry, Alex. Alex just nodded, unable to speak. The general understood. The Purifiers, Vance continued, his voice hardening. We have their names, their networks. Thanks to Anya's work, we can begin to dismantle them. This isn't over, Captain. This was just the first battle in a much larger war. Alex looked at his team. Maverick, stoic and dependable. Lena, sharp and unwavering. Ghost, quiet but lethal. Anya, brilliant and indispensable. They were bruised, exhausted, but unbroken. They had faced down a nuclear threat and survived. No, General, Alex said, his voice regaining some of its steel. It's not over. Not until every last one of them is brought to justice. His eyes, though still holding a flicker of sorrow, now burned with a renewed purpose. The personal tragedy of Elias would fuel his resolve. As the sun finally rose, casting long shadows across the desolate landscape, Alex looked back at the city, now safe, its inhabitants blissfully unaware of the nightmare they had narrowly escaped. He was a ghost, and Wraith operated in the shadows, their victories unsung, their sacrifices unseen. But they knew. They knew the cost of peace, and they would continue to pay it for as long as threats like the Broken Arrow resurfaced, and for as long as there were those who sought to bring the world to its knees. The reckoning had begun, and Wraith would be at its forefront, silent guardians against the coming storm.